Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to take a moment to have a moment of silence for Robert Kavanaugh. Bob Kavanaugh, as we knew him, was a former educator of Scranton School District, an avid union leader, and a former president of the SFT. He passed away this week, as well as Terry Gallagher Jr., who was an employee of Scranton School District as an art supervisor in Scranton School District for 37 years. Thank you. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Casey?
Present.
Mrs. Cognetti? Mr. Duffy? Ms. Gilmartin? Mr. Lesh?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mrs. Oleski?
Present.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mrs. Dixon?
Present.
9 present.
At this moment, I'd like to open up the floor for our public comment. And our first speaker, how many minutes are the timings for, Mr. Gainer? 3
Three.
minutes?
3.
3 minutes. Mr. Bob Wallace.
Good evening, Bob Wallace, a lifelong resident of Scranton. Question is, why are we here tonight? We see people here all dressed in red. We have a board. The reason we're here is we're all accountable. We're all responsible for where the school district is right now, each and every one of us. The blame lies on all our shoulders because we allowed you people to do what you've done. We allowed you to go ahead and do no bid contracts. We allowed you to run rampant with our money, putting us in debt that each and every one of us now have to figure out how we get out of this. Higher taxes. Remember, we get taxed 3 ways in Scranton: the county, the school, and the city. So where do we go with this? We go forward. We're gonna have layoffs. We're a business. Teaching's a business. People have a job. You have a responsibility, and that's to the people in this community. It's not about your unions. Unions don't teach. Teachers teach. Maybe teachers have to become more multitask individuals. Bob Kavanaugh, that passed, was one of my teachers many, many years ago. They were called teachers because whether it snowed or whatever it did, they showed up for work. People don't understand when teachers don't come to school or they call in late. My employees can't come to work. They lose money. Our customers are aggravated because we can't deliver their goods. Yet we pay. The teachers get compensated. You need to start looking at the overall picture here and the quality that we're getting. When I went to school, a teacher taught varied subjects. Today, we're specialists, and we gotta make changes. We gotta change with what we are and the economy as it is, and the format what we're doing with computerization and the educational process is a lot different today than it was many years ago. So you have a hard decision to make, but the decision you people make tonight, whether you lose a job, Kimberly-Clark just laid off thousands. Specialty Records just laid off people. It's part of the trend, it's part of the consequences of working. There's no such thing as job security anymore, no matter who you are or what you think you should be. And a union isn't gonna protect you, it's only gonna break this community. We cannot have unions in this community dictate any longer to us, the people and the residents in this city, as to how we should live and what we should pay and be responsible for the actions of others. You need to make the hard decisions. You need to make the changes. If you need to fire the people and let them go, then you need to do that. That's your responsibility to the people of this community. Stand up for our rights, not those that are crying about taking an easy way out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Ms. Rosemary Boland.
Good evening, directors. Mrs. Dixon, on behalf of our 900-plus union members, the Scranton Federation of Teachers thanks you and the board for acknowledging the passing of our founder and the signatories on the charter of the Scranton Federation of Teachers, Robert Kavanaugh. And coincidentally, if you believe in coincidence, today, January 25th, 1952, our charter was recognized by the American Federation of Teachers. So today is a very special day for us. We sent a correspondence to Mr. Gaynard's office, the HR department, and we've also copied the school board on that correspondence. The Scranton Federation of Teachers has requested information in that correspondence, and we have not received an acknowledgement, nor have we received the information requested in that communication. If it's taking longer than 2 or 3 days to get that information to us, I should have been told that by now, but I certainly am expecting an answer forthwith to that communication. It's very crystal clear, the information that has been requested, and we expect that in our office by early next week, if not sooner. Now, Mr. Casey, not so long ago, you made a suggestion that we go to a 4-day work week. And of course, I think you were shot down pretty quickly with that idea, but I don't know why that was not looked into. Because you see, Mr. Casey, you might have something going there. If we extend the workday by an hour for 4 days, and we close shop 1 day out of the 5, then that saves 20% of your busing budget overall. Without blinking an eye, you'll save money in both busing contracts. We are under a financial watch. You've had all kinds of suggestions thrown at you, and you're supposed to make some kind of an educated decision. And I'm supposing, from the agenda that I've seen, you intend to do that tonight. Well, if you make that decision and you haven't looked into the 4-day work week, which you do all summer with your maintenance folks, and it seems to be working out for them, we see no reason why you shouldn't have looked into that matter for us, for the entire Scranton School District. So we would suggest strongly that you do that, and there's no way the state's going to challenge you on it, since it's the state auditor's office that told you what to do in the first place. So, why challenge you? I recommend strongly that you do what the state told you could do. Put us on a 4-day work week, extend the workday by 1 hour, you're not losing time, and you're saving a whole heck of a lot of money. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. Kevin Case.
Good evening, directors. Kevin Case, City of Scranton citizen for 65 years, teacher here, officer with the Scranton Federation of Teachers. I just want, before you make your final decision or whatever you're going to decide on tonight, it seems to be the most talked about thing all week long. Nobody seems to know exactly what that is. We know that it has to do with possible furloughing of teachers. I just want to remind you of numbers I've spoken before, and just want to make sure it's clear. The numbers come from your own audits and from the Auditor General's audits. The teachers' salaries, the average increase over a decade are somewhere around 1%. Your expenditure for our salaries is something like 1% increase on average per year. Your revenues average about 3% increase on average per year for the last decade. And the cost of inflation, about 2%. And the cost of your busing contracts, 11%. Now, that 11% might not sound too bad, but that 11% average per year added up to about 79% over a 7-year period. That amounts to, it's well over $4 million per year now between the two of them for transportation. That increase was on top of what Auditor General Jack Wagner called about a 300% payment, overpayment over the state allowance. So the increase is on top of an already fatted calf. If you're looking at where to cut, I would think where the fat is, and not where, I've said in the past, you've held the cost of our salary increases down very well. You've done a great job doing that. The expenditure for us only 1% per year. I like Mr. Casey's idea, 4-day work week. Seems to be like a good thing to help save probably, if it's 20% of the savings on busing, it's got to be close to $1 million a year, if not more. I don't know why we wouldn't do that. Mr. Menorah did say that he thought that it might not be a good idea because Hazelton got shut down on a 4-day work week. But I don't think Hazelton had been cited for the worst audit ever by an Auditor General. And I think our circumstances are totally different right here, right now, when we're looking at furloughing teachers who have car payments, house payments, children in college that they're trying to pay tuitions for, all kinds of things that they thought their jobs, where they thought their jobs were secure. And most importantly, when you furlough a large number of teachers, you know that the educational programs are going to suffer. And most importantly, the students of the district are likely not to get the education that they certainly deserve. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Suzanne Ferry.
Good evening, my name is Suzanne Ferry. I am a first grade teacher and a member of the Scranton Federation of Teachers. I am here once again to give my thoughts on what has been happening. I have always been an optimist my whole life, and I'm finding that my hope and optimism is dwindling quite a bit after what has been happening over the past months. I am speaking from my heart, and I don't mean any disrespect, but the thought of cutting programs and teachers there's an evilness there. I cannot believe that we are actually having this conversation, that we would be considering taking away programs from our students. I cannot put that in my head, and I think that's why I just keep talking. It just makes no sense. It is so detrimental to our students. And what bothers me is that I feel like it was the first option chosen. And it should be the last option chosen. There have to be other ways. I ask you, please remember that you were elected to make the best decisions for the children in our district. I do not think this is the best. Again, I know it's been said before, but our financial situation, we know it has to be addressed and it has to be dealt with. But our students did not create this, and we didn't either. And yet I feel that they are the ones who are going to be hurt the most. And another thing that I'm concerned about is our concerns have been given to you, and we feel like they're falling on deaf ears. We are with the children every day. We've had parents who have talked. We've had citizens who've talked. And we feel like no one is really listening to what this means to our students. You've got to think about the consequences. What is going to happen to the quality of education if you cut all these programs? Who is going to want to send their children to this district? Because I love this district, but if you cut these programs, it's not the same education. I try, every day I walk down the halls and I try to imagine no music, and our wonderful teachers, no gym, no art, no, all of our specialists. How could that be? How could we not want to do everything we possibly can to give our students those opportunities? What do we do about our special needs children who thrive with the arts? How do we say no to them? I cannot wrap my thoughts around this. I ask you to please, please do everything you possibly can to make a furlough the last option. Our students need everything. They need everything we can give them. Every possibility. You had all those opportunities. I did too. Please do not take away these opportunities. Our children need everything we can give them, and they need what we are not even able to give them right now. Please remember why you are here. You were elected to make the best decisions you can. Please do that. Do not take away the programs and the teachers. The professionals who are with these students every day, do not take them away. From the high school down, they need everything we can give them. Thank you.
Thank you. Abigail Wilson.
My name is Abigail Wilson, and I have attended Prescott Elementary, Neil Armstrong Elementary, and I'm currently in 8th grade at Northeast Intermediate. Next year will be my freshman year at Scranton High School. However, the school board has a plan to cut the arts. Now, there are countless reasons why this is a terrible and useless idea. This proposed idea has sparked public outrage because it is unfair to the students in the district and it limits the education of the students. If you cut the education of arts to a child, then you strip away their futures and their right to become a cultured and productive member of society. Some of the only ways children of this district can even get to college is through those classes, and the board's proposal is unfair and quite heartbreaking to say the least. If they even went to one of the schools in the district and spent a day there, they could see the minds of the students have been massively changed and improved by the teachers that work tirelessly in our music and art classes. Also, the cutting of so many teachers is ludicrous in my eyes. These teachers have improved the minds and saved the lives of me and my fellow students. Me and my fellow students have attended the schools in this district and are continuing to grow with the guidance of the teachers here. These teachers' jobs just don't end when the bell is rung and the building is empty. They work around the clock, finding greater and better ways to help their students in whatever ways they can. You do not speak or fight for the children of this district. You instead make them suffer. You already pay the teachers peanuts, and now you want to cut their jobs. So I ask you, why would you cut the jobs and education of so many when you know that it has greatly bettered the lives of them?
Good evening. Forgive me, I'm a little nervous for a couple of reasons. I'd be wearing red, except there's a Coach vs. Cancer fundraiser down in the gym. So, my name's Adam McCormick. I've been coming to these meetings for the last month or so. Well, obviously besides for the last few years, but so this is going to be a little bit piecemeal. So it's going to be a couple points that I'd like to make. When someone runs into financial hardship, they have to take a long, hard look at their budget. They look for extravagance and excess. They decide that maybe they should not go on vacation or purchase a new car. They do not immediately cut essentials like their food budget. That is what you plan to do. The teachers of the school district are the most essential part of that budget, behind only the students which the school district serves. At one of your meetings around December 27th, someone mentioned looking into adjusting or changing busing procedures in order to save money. Changing the number of students that were picked up, changing the routes. I mention this now because I find it unfathomable that your plan includes laying off 89 teachers before even considering changing the numbers of students we bus or routes those buses take. The mission of the Scranton School District is to, quote, educate, inspire, and empower students, end quote. If you are willing to cut teachers before taking a hard look at other areas, then that is not your mission. And you should consider putting a committee together to draft a mission statement more reflective of that choice. The city of Scranton mentioned sharing some resources in order to save money. Read it in the paper, and that's the last time I heard it mentioned. Has that been talked about? Has that been considered? Have you looked into privatizing any services? I've heard it was considered a few years ago and then for some reason dropped. Have you looked into the cost of overtime for maintenance when student athletes and their coaches practiced? Not one school district that I have talked to, and I've asked many, requires a maintenance person to be present for who knows what reason when a team is practicing. Instead, they trust their coaches with a $2 key and a code and allow them to work with their student athletes as they see fit. Have you considered allowing employees to use half days instead of full days in an attempt to save the amount of money we've dealt with ASAP? Each year I have one or two students, I'm sorry for clapping over the applause, trust me, I love it, it's given me some confidence here. But I have a time limit and I want to make sure I get it all in. Have you considered allowing, I've got that one. Each year I have one or two students who consider going to a private school after middle school. So far this year, 7 students have told me they plan on going to a private school. I do not believe this is coincidence. Side note, this is off topic, but there's a woman who has been at many of the last few board meetings, and each time she is very supportive of the educational system. Please, one more minute, but asks why so many students are failing the state test. A fair question for sure. She never gets an answer to this question. I don't know if there's a perfect answer, but each time she gets up, I hope that someone from the stage will defend the students and teachers of this district and explain that students are scored by both achievement and growth. And while our students may not reach the often publicized achievement goal, they often show excellent growth, particularly when we are compared to similar districts. I also would like to address the hourly rate that was presented in a slideshow a few weeks ago. The slide mentioned 5.48 hours per day for 185 days a year. This seemed to be accurate, but it does not take into account the time we spend at home correcting papers and planning lessons and activities. It does not count the time we spend going to students' games and meets and matches. It does not take into account the evenings we spend at concerts and dances and plays, all things that teachers do with no thought of a paycheck, but do simply to remind students that we care about their successes and achievements and goals. When all of this time is considered, teachers are worth every penny at twice the cost. And finally, outpouring of support for teachers at a school board meeting last month was nothing short of inspiring. It reminded me of why I left a different school district to come back to my community and teach in the city in which I live. A decision like the one you will make tonight have far-reaching effects. Will your vote be a bolt in the foundation of our city's future, or will it be another nail in this city's coffin? Thank you.
Wallace, public comment. Director Casey, personnel.
It is the recommendation of the Superintendent and Personnel Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Scranton School District Board of Education is approving the Code 1124 and Code 1125.1 economic layoffs due to substantial budget shortfall and/or non-economic alterations and curtailment of programs. Whereas the Board of Education is approving the intent to suspend professional and all temporary professional employees by a majority vote by this resolution. Whereas the non-renewal of temporary professional employees are not suspensions within the meaning of the Section 1124 and Section 1125.1. Whereas the Board of Education's final budget is to be submitted no later than March 28th, 2018. Whereas the Board of Education is approving this 60 days prior to the adoption of a final budget. Whereas the Board of Education is proposing the suspensions to reduce a budget deficit of approximately $4,500,000 prior to suspensions. Whereas the Board of Education anticipates the total savings for the 2018 budget after these suspensions to be approximately $691,033. Whereas the Board of Education has undertaken other cost-saving measures such as 40 layoffs in maintenance and clerical union, 10 additional layoffs in year 3 of the maintenance and clerical contracts, healthcare savings, vendor savings, and other savings as identified in the proposed budget. Whereas the Board of Education will expend $161,504,576 in 2018 with these suspensions and will expend $162,195,609 in 2018 without the proposed suspensions. Whereas the Board of Education projects total revenue and other financing sources in 2018 to be $157,668,070. Whereas the Board of Education projects 28 professional employees to be suspended, representing 4.06% of the total professional employees. Administrators in an equal percentage of the professional employees suspended will be suspended as follows. First, the Board of Education will apply for a waiver to PDE. Second, the Board of Education will utilize budgeted but unfilled positions allowed. Third, the Board of Education will suspend 2 administrative out of 42 total positions representing 4.06% of administrative staff. Whereas the Board of Education has reviewed the impact of the proposed suspensions on students and finds that students will continue to receive a full complement of academic programs. No programs have been eliminated with the exception of library, which will be integrated into the regular education program by classroom teachers. All class sizes will remain to contract standards. The impact on academic programs, if the proposed suspensions are not utilized, indicates that deeper suspensions and program cuts will be necessary for the next school year. Whereas the collective bargaining agreement between the parties has ended and is in a period of status quo. Any collective bargaining agreement limiting suspension of professional employees does not apply in a period of status quo. Whereas the Board of Education will suspend an equal percentage of administration if a waiver is denied and stated herein. Whereas the order of suspensions will be pursuant to 1124 and 1125.1 of the school code. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of School Directors hereby authorizes the intent to suspend professional employees due to economic reasons and/or alteration and/or curtailment of programs. Be it further resolved that the Board of School Directors hereby authorizes and directs the superintendent to take the appropriate actions, including notifying affected employees of intent to suspend the appropriate professional employees due to economic reasons and/or alteration and/or curtailment of programs as described above. Respectfully submitted. I need a second.
Second. Roll call.
Question?
On the question?
On the question, I'd just like to ask the attorneys, included in the language of 1124 and 1125.1, is this Act 55?
Yes.
The language of Act 55 is included. Thank you.
Yeah,
just to say it a little bit differently, my understanding is that, just to reiterate, that this does not include program cuts aside from library, but the libraries will remain open, books will remain in the libraries, students will still be able to access the libraries with their teachers.
Anyone else?
Students
call.
will be allowed access to it.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Sorry.
Oh, wait a minute.
Director Cognetti is asking if the students still have access to the libraries.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. Roll call.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lesh? Yes. Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Any new business?
Yes, I have two questions, one pertaining to our speakers, or both pertaining to our speakers tonight. Could we potentially have a study to show where we will not meet our hours if we did propose a 4-day work week during the school year, to make sure that we do match up and we in fact do not hit that hourly rate? And then my second question is for Director Duffy, being the chairman of Intergovernmental Relations. Mr. McCormick brought it up tonight, and I was going to bring it up, but in today's editorial section, they talked about an idea session with City Council and stakeholders. If we can reach out to President Rogan or whomever is organizing those think sessions to involve the school district.
Ariana, we've reached out to the mayor and Mr. Rogan. He's spoken to me personally, and I have given him contact information to all the personnel on the Intergovernmental Committee, and I believe he's already reached out.
Yeah, I'd be as well.
And we're quite to the contrary, it's a main focus of ours to see what we can share when it comes to services and what the city can help to provide to us as far as financial help moving forward.
Can I also attend that?
Sure.
Madam President, point of personal privilege. Would you please share with the members of this union right now, number of people you intend to furlough, and how you intend to let them know that they are being furloughed? You want a number.
Solicitor Lenore, can you answer that? Can you answer that?
The number is 51, and they'll be notified by letter. Within the prescribed time period of the statute.
So, Mr. Menard, what you're saying is
Please, I can only get one person at a time.
51 tenured teachers,
No,
and how many non-tenured?
28 tenured teachers, 23 non-tenured teachers.
And they're going to be notified by letter.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Jay!